So we're over that 50% mark. We've now recruited and dosed 58 patients of a total of 92 that we look to recruit into this trial. And so we're anticipating that we'll finish dosing sort of mid next year.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined by Dr. Liz Dallimore. She's the MD and the CEO of Argenica Therapeutics. Liz, very good to meet you. For viewers not familiar with the company, tell us a little bit about Argenica and what you do.
Sure, Stephen, and thanks very much for having me. So Argenica Therapeutics is a clinical stage drug development company. So we are developing our lead drug candidate, which is known as ARG-007, in acute ischemic stroke. So this is testing the drug in patients that have presented to the emergency department with an ischemic stroke, which is caused by a blood clot in the brain. And really what we're hoping to show from this phase 2 clinical trial is that the drug is ideally safe, but that it reflects what we see in our preclinical data with an extraordinary ability of this drug to protect brain cells from dying post-stroke.
Talk to us about the addressable market you're looking at, Liz.
Yeah, so if you look at the wider stroke therapeutic market in and of itself, it's worth about $12 billion per year globally. So a pretty significant market. We are really targeting large vessel occlusion stroke patients. So these are patients that are presenting to the emergency department with a clot that's lodged in a large vessel in the brain. This makes up around 40% of all strokes, so still a significant market. So that's stroke on its own, but our lead drug candidate, ARG-007, does lend itself to protecting against brain injury in a number of other indications. And so we're really keen to look at the ability of the drug to work in a clinical setting in traumatic brain injury, again, which is about an $18 billion global market annually, and then other indications such as neurodegenerative diseases and a rare pediatric condition known as hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. So combined, pretty significant markets and really significant unmet medical needs for these patients where there's currently no drugs available to protect brain cells following these brain injuries.
Liz, you mentioned the phase 2 clinical trial and you passed a significant milestone last week. The Data Safety Monitoring Board has given you the green light to progress with that trial. Take us through that and the significance of it.
Sure. So for, I guess, the viewers that don't really know or are not familiar with how clinical trials run, we are running what's known as a blinded study, a double-blinded study. So we have our drug that's being administered to patients and also a placebo, but no one working on the trial actually knows which patient is receiving which sort of administration, either the drug or the placebo. This is really important to protect against any biases that may arise when assessing patients for neurological and functional outcomes. So what the Data Safety Monitoring Board is doing throughout the trial is really looking at all the patients that we've dosed. So that DSMB was looking at we've now passed that 50% patient dosing mark, but they were looking at the data from that first 50% of patients dosed, which was 46 patients, and looking across the board to make sure that there's no safety issues. They don't know, again, whether the patients have received our drug or the placebo, but the fact that we didn't see any serious adverse events that could have been possibly related to the drug is a massive a tick of, I guess, approval and a huge milestone for us to pass, especially given that's data from 50% of the patients that have been dosed in the trial. So yeah, really significant. In terms of that DSMB, it's made up of 3 independent neurologists that have deep expertise, not only in running clinical trials, but assessing the neurological data and the safety data associated with stroke patients.
So the next steps then, Liz?
Yeah, so the next steps is we continue to dose in this phase 2 clinical trial. So I might just sort of backtrack a little bit and give viewers a little bit of info on what we are doing in the phase 2 trial. So we're dosing patients that are coming into emergency departments across 10 hospitals across Australia that we've activated as clinical trial sites. They have to have a confirmed large vessel occlusion, so a clot in one of the large vessels in the brain, and be eligible for a procedure known as thrombectomy. So we did report that we're over that 50% mark. We've now recruited and dosed 58 patients of a total of 92 that we look to recruit into this trial. And so we're anticipating that we'll finish dosing sort of mid next year. And then we'll get top-line data out pretty soon after the 90-day follow-up of that last patient dose. So this time next year, hopefully we'll have those top-line results, and fingers crossed they're all positive. But from a safety perspective, which really is our primary endpoint in this trial, we're feeling pretty confident.
Fingers crossed indeed, Liz. I hope you'll keep us posted on any progress. Thank you very much for speaking with us today. That's Liz Dallimore, the MD and CEO of Argenica Therapeutics.